Welcome to this week's episode of Rookie Roulette. I'm your host, Tyler Metcalf. We got a fun one today. We have Tristan da Silva, rookie for the Orlando Magic, out of the University of Colorado, was a senior coming out of Colorado. He ended up at 14 on the No Ceilings Collective final big board, ended up at 9 on my personal board, and he ended up being the 18th pick for the Orlando Magic. The big selling point with Da Silva was that he was just kind of one of these ready-made guys. You plug and play. He can do a little bit of everything. He was just kind of a gap filler where maybe some of the numbers weren't outlandish. They weren't over the top impressive, but they were all really good and they were all really consistent. His feel, his team defense, his connective passing, off ball scoring, on ball defensive versatility. It was all just really, really solid. It's been a little bit of a rocky start for Da Silva so far. I really like the way that he's kind of processing the game and his feel, his decision making, the fundamentals. It all feels really sound and like the guy that we saw for years at Colorado, but he just can't buy a bucket right now. And the biggest thing right now is that his scoring efficiency is just non existent. Overall, he has a 48.9 effective field goal rate. Tough. 58% at the rim, 36% in the mid range, 31% from three. And from the corners, he's been okay shooting 38%, but above the break, it's down to 27%, which is just brutal. And he's, kind of an afterthought on offense with a 13.7 usage. And I know the defensive playmaking and rebounding numbers are kind of low too, but I still like his kind of process and approach on that end of the floor. When we look at some of the lineup data, it's a little funky. His three most common lineups have a defensive rating of 110, 93.2, and 84.9. Now, I know that the Magic have this great defensive infrastructure, and they have a lot of really versatile, physical, in your face defenders throughout that entire rotation. But Da Silva is contributing to that in a big way. He is a very good defender in college, and that defensive versatility is really coming through, I think, so far in the NBA as well, even though the defensive playmaking numbers may not suggest that, the overall team advanced numbers do. When we look at kind of who he's played with on the star level, when he's on the court with Franz Wagner, they have a net rating of plus 3.2, and that's over 691 possessions. When Franz is off the court in the 274 possessions where Da Silva's on and Franz is off, they have a negative 8.7 net rating. Franz has had a damn good year. And interestingly enough, I know he had an injury early on and has yet to come back, but Da Silva hasn't played a single possession with Paolo yet. So, at least per cleaning the glass, who takes out garbage time. So that's going to be a really interesting kind of, I think, pairing and thing to keep an eye on going forward. As Da Silva is a guy who can play off of stars, he doesn't necessarily create for others, but he can be that outlet and play finisher. When we look at synergy, he's in the 70th percentile spotting up and 40.7% from three in those situations. Fantastic. The shooting off the catch gets weird, though. 28th percentile shooting off the catch. When he's unguarded, he's shooting 25.6% from three, but 41.7% when guarded, and then just 48.6% at the rim in the half court. So again, he just can't buy a bucket right now. We'll get into more of the feel and stuff with my interview with Rich Stayman coming up here in just a second. Rich has some really great insight and really follows this Magic team closely. So let's hop over to my interview with Rich Stayman. Thrilled to bring on one of the newer members of No Ceilings, and funnily enough, someone who was one of the first people I ever did a podcast with. You love him on Twitter. He's your favorite. You know him as Mavs Draft, as Mavs Magic Draft, as Magic Draft. He is Rich Stayman. Rich, how's it going?
Hey, good to be on. How are you?
Fantastic. But before we hit the record button, you opened my eyes to this is the fact that this is the first time that we've actually potted together since you joined the No Ceilings family officially.
Yeah, it's the debut.
That's my bad.
I'm excited.
But I'm excited to get you on for this one. I believe this is someone that you were high on as well as I was. Great wording there. I ended up with him at 9 on my board, but Tristan da Silva, Orlando Magic rookie, kind of an up and down season so far. After kind of going through all of his games and stuff, though, I like the way that he's processing the game, his approach to it. It feels like he just can't buy a bucket. But let's start kind of big picture first. When the Magic initially made that pick and selected Da Silva, what was just kind of your initial reaction to how he would fit with this team?
Yeah, I was ecstatic. I mean, this is a team that in the offseason they needed shooting. That was a big priority. They needed shooters who had size, who could potentially defend, potentially pass when needed. Some of that stuff has translated, some of it hasn't. But overall, I think it's been a good experience. And with him, I had him 13, so I wasn't as high as you on him, but we both thought like surefire players, guys that are going to stick, right? Like we had the same general consensus feel, or not consensus, same general feeling about him, higher than the consensus, and clearly higher than most NBA teams because he went, I think 18 or something like that. So that's it seems like we're on the same page.
So, how has kind of have your reactions changed at all? From draft day when they took him, your kind of pre-college eval to today?
Not really. I mean, everything's looked really good. I wouldn't, if anything, maybe better than I expected. I
Really?
mean, some of the stuff he's done in some of these games where it's like he's had some really big moments. I don't think there's ever a moment where I'm like, oh, he's clearly a rookie. Like he looks the part of an older rookie in all the best ways. Sometimes he doesn't hit all his shots, fine. But I can rarely think of games where it's like he shouldn't be on the floor. You never think that. He's not a guy that you really think too much of, like there's these mistakes. Is it going to get better? It's just some of it's like, yeah, there's some rust to shake off in areas he's gotten better at over recent years, but he's not fully there. So I'm really impressed.
Yeah. So I mean, what kind of specifically is keeping you so high on him? Because I'm in a similar boat. Because I even just like these last couple games against Milwaukee and Phoenix. I mean, he's guarded Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Giannis, Brooke Lopez, Chris Middleton. It's like Damian Lillard. It's like, all right, whoever's one of the best primary ball handlers, go get him, Rook. So it's like the numbers with him are kind of rough right now. And when you look at some of the lineup data and offensive ratings and all that kind of stuff, it's been tough. But his three most common lineups all have like defensive ratings of 110, 93.2, and 84.9. Is it mostly the defensive end, or is there stuff on the offensive end too that's kind of keeping you so enthused about his kind of long-term future and fit with this team?
Yeah, the defense is nice. I think it's really actually just the processes. I think
Okay.
he's somebody where he's shooting 33% from three right now. Probably going to get higher. That doesn't really worry me. He's a rookie. No rookie. It's rare rookies come out and shoot absolute guns blazing. I mean, even right now, Reed Shepherd isn't somebody we're talking about how great he's been shooting, but also like not to stray far away from Tristan here, but like in general, it's the processes, right? Are they getting open shots? I don't know. They're 19 to 23 years old. They're probably going to miss. Like it happens. So that doesn't worry me a ton. What I really like is just how quick he is to process. Oh, crap. I'm going to get a really tough contest. Let me quickly and accurately get rid of the ball. One of the things he does very well is the driving kick where he'll go to the rim, do a finger roll, go up, and then boop, the ball's out to the right. And that's where guys like Goga Batadze have really thrived playing next to him. So I really like that. I think it's just all the processes are there.
Yeah, and in the opening, I kind of ran through a bunch of his numbers and where he's basically just struggling to buy a bucket across the floor. But when you talk about the processes and just how he kind of operates, just even his cutting, his timing on those, the way that they're running him off of like DHOs and getting him downhill and into space, like the handle gets loose occasionally, but I never feel like he's making the wrong decision or
Yeah.
feels uncomfortable or rushed or sped up at all, which is so rare for rookies.
Yeah. I mean, the only game I've seen it, I'd say bad was the most recent one in the NBA Cup against the Bucks, where it was always in transition, if I'm not mistaken, where he'd take one too many dribbles. You can tell that like the development is there on the handle because he had some nice moves, but he took one too many dribbles, ripped right away. And that's the kind of mistakes where it's like, and he's young, he's a little bit overconfident in what he's got. That can be easily toned down. And again, I just feel like in general with the shot not falling, like proven shooter, he's hitting just synergy breakdown, 75 catch and shoot threes, shooting 33%. He's 15 of 36 on guarded ones, so it's 41.7%. On open ones, he's just missing. He's shooting 25%. Like he's not a 25% shooter from wide open. Like I just feel like some of the processes are all there outside of, again, a couple of over dribbling things, but it's all fixable mistakes right now.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that too is just kind of who he's been playing with, because like when he's been on the court with Franz, the net rating is like +3. When Franz is off the court, it's almost -9. So, and he never really projected to be this offensive hub, this on-ball creator, this shot creator, but more of kind of a play finisher. And we're seeing that when he has that offensive creator on the court with him, he hasn't played at all with Paolo. Weirdly enough, but Paolo's been hurt. But when we kind of project 2 months from now, when Franz and Paolo are both healthy, it's kind of hard to imagine that Da Silva's impact isn't going to be even, more impressive than the flashes and kind of stretches that we've already gotten.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. Is when he first was thrown into the fire of truly becoming a rotation player, I want to say that was the very end of Paolo's run before getting hurt. And then the whole team had really struggled to adapt with what Franz and the show, like they had a long, I would say, week of not knowing what to do. And Tristan da Silva did shine a little bit actually in a few of those games, but it's hard for a rookie to be thrown in where it's like, hey, our best player's out. You got to figure it out on the fly while everyone else is figuring it out on the fly. And then you figure it out, and then Franz goes down with an identical injury. It's a tough position for a rookie.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we're seeing just the rest of the team kind of figure out how to step into those voids as well, from, Goga to Jet to Anthony Black to Jalen Suggs. So it's a really tough adjustment when your top 2 offensive creators go down, let alone being a rookie and having to do it too. All right. So I kind of want to take a step back and talk to me about what your kind of evaluation with Da Silva was coming out of Colorado, and just who you thought he would be or could be, and the kind of peaks of where you think his game could evolve into.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's pretty similar. He was this. But I'll just kind of read a little bit of the notes in the scouting report. My expected role for him was a shooter with the occasional ability to create for himself, create for others, and also defend it. Like, he's not going to be a liability, right? So adequately. So I think all of that is translated. The negative stuff was, I was like, well, the decision-making, inconsistency, attacking closeouts, some bad habits around the rest of his game away from shooting. Maybe that negates it. That had always been a concern in the few years at Colorado that I had seen him. That maybe offenses target him, but I don't think that's been the case. I don't feel like we've seen him be hunted super hard. That may change in the playoffs because he's a rookie. I don't think that has to do a ton with some of the other traits. Right. But the big thing for me is, if his age didn't limit his upside, can his defense become maximized? And he went to a spot where defense is the top priority. I don't think there's many teams. Maybe Oklahoma City is the only other one where defense has become more of their identity. Like, besides them, it's them in Orlando. Yeah. Like, that's a huge, great landing spot. That's why it's easy to do blank slate scouting and saying, oh, they're not a good defender. But if they weren't a good defender, like for him, he wasn't a great defender at Colorado by any means. I didn't think he was bad, but there were like flags some places. The difference between getting drafted to Orlando and a team like, say, Washington, who had the 30th ranked defense, it's a big difference of how you're going to develop on the defensive end, right? I don't know if they actually had 30th, but like they're the worst record right now. They're probably around there. So that's why fit matters so much.
So I feel like we've kind of touched on this a few times, but I just want to directly ask you, with his season so far, what have you just kind of been flat out the most impressed with? We've talked about his process on both ends of the floor, the way he's approaching it. Like, I know his defensive, like, playmaking numbers, the block rate, steal rate are kind of low, but they kind of always were in college too. That's never really been the defender he is. And it's more so when I watch him defend, it's like, man, this guy just kind of knows what he's doing out there? He's making the right rotation. He's sliding his feet. He's not getting over eager and fouling. So for me, that's what stood out the most is just how comfortable, surprisingly comfortable he looks through his first 20-ish games. So just for you, is it something similar or is it something a little more specific?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty similar. It's a different point, but the same overarching, picture of it, right? The Magic have two rotation players that have a negative assist to turnover ratio, and they're both front court guys, Jonathan Isaac and Mo Wagner off the bench, guys that don't need to have a super high assist to turnover ratio. Someone in the role of Tristan da Silva does. Tristan da Silva's is over 2. It's 35-15. And I think it kind of goes back to, right, the playmaking that I raved about, where he can drive and kick. He's very, very deceptive about he's not like a blow-by athlete by any means. So when he does move, you kind of have to make quick decisions, and he does that. It's just all of that stuff to me is very impressive. They're a team that prides themselves in not taking care of the ball and not committing turnovers, and he completely fits into that identity. So I've been a big fan of that.
Just kind of sticking with the passing, and he was never like a big time playmaker, but the connective passing, the ball movement, the processing speed was always impressive, and it's showing up in his assist to turnover numbers, like you just referenced. Do you think there's kind of a role or a way that they could get even more of that out of him to really kind of ingratiate him into the offense a little more, maybe it helps him kind of find a rhythm while his shot's not falling currently?
Yeah, it's tough because once Paolo and Franz come back, that usage is going to drop so much. But right now, it's going to be a lot by committee. Jalen Suggs is going to be the number one option probably,
Right.
in terms of usage, I would say. That's going to create wild scenarios for the offenses where some nights Tristan da Silva is going to get 10 shots, some nights he's going to get 2.
Yeah.
And I think in those roller coaster of numbers, I think that's where he's going to grow a lot. We're going to find out, okay, is he comfortable being this role player? Does he need a little bit more time? Because when Paolo and Franz are back, he's going to have to adapt to so many different scenarios, right? Paolo is not hitting his shots. Franz isn't hitting his shots, whatever it is. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs. How can you step up and make things happen after several empty possessions? And that's what I want to see from Tristan, because that's going to happen now. They're going to get a lot of more empty possessions, but just how much can you negate that, and how quickly can you negate that?
And is it something just as simple as once the shot starts falling more, defenders are going to close out even more, and
Yeah.
then that's just going to even increase those opportunities to attack closeouts and create out of those?
Yep, because he sees, like, his big thing that I've liked since college, and he does this really well in the NBA, is if he's sitting in the corner, he gets the pass like in the corner to a semi-open shot. Let's call it like 60% open.
Mhm.
He sees the next defender coming over from the wing. If he's in the corner, he sees him coming. He'll immediately kick it back. If it's a give and go, like by accident, it'll happen. He sees that kind of stuff. If he sees the cut, if the guy from the paint is coming over to help, he can go around it. He's accurate with his throws, his passes. And I think that shot falling more and having him being a lethal threat out of the corner, which really the Magic haven't had, by the way. Like KCP's getting there again. The Magic haven't had that. That really changes how the Magic offense operates, because they haven't been respected as shooters in this core.
Yeah. And, just with the scoring gravity and the way that Paolo and Franz can just effortlessly collapse the defense, and he's at like 38% from the corners so far this year. If he can bump that up to, that should be over 40 by the end of the year, and they'll just add so much more to their offense. Okay. So to get a little negative, because, it's me, why not? What has kind of concerned you the most, where you think is like, oh, this might actually be an issue long term?
Man, I don't see anything glaringly negative. I think the biggest red flag that could pop up is, does he get hunted in the playoffs? Like I think that's probably where there's the most downside is there an exploitable element to his defense that we haven't seen yet? I think that's probably the biggest red flag.
Are you worried at all about the kind of like defensive playmaking numbers, like block rate, steal rate, per game stuff being so low? I tend not to, but with someone his size, you'd like him to be at least a little higher. But it kind of goes back to the process stuff that we've been harping on too.
Yeah, yes and no, because like every player, you want to be able to be a defensive playmaker.
Mhm.
But the thing is, like with Da Silva, that's just not who he is. And if he is okay embracing it, where it's like, hey, I'll face guard, may not result in much, but I'm gonna reject the ball going to my guy. That does a lot more damage to, not more damage, but that does a lot of damage as well. I think that holds its own value. If you can master that stuff that may not show up in the stat sheet positively, because that will actually show up in the stat sheet as low, I think there is a strength to that weakness.
Going forward, is there anything in his game or approach, other than just, hey, make a jumper, please, that you would kind of like to see more of, where there's like this untapped aspect of his game that maybe hasn't quite been utilized yet? Obviously, a little tricky with rookie role
Yeah.
players, and on playoff teams. But is there anything, especially with Paolo and Franz out, that you think the Magic could kind of get a little more out of De Silva going forward?
I'm interested to see his self-creation. He only had 16 isolation attempts last year. I mean, even just looking at Summer League, he
I
only
love
had one isolation possession. So I'm interested to see, and this year he has 3, and I'm pretty sure they're either garbage time or end of the clock. Will he actually get a chance to be the primary playmaker, or primary ball handler, I should say, any given possession? Like, he can clearly be trusted. 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah.
He's going to make the right decision, but can his ball handling sustain it? And like, is it a matter of, hey, quick fake handoff, I'm going to find the cutter right out of this? What is it? Like, that's kind of what I'm interested to see is what is his trial by error? Is it the ball handling? Is it just, hey, shoot the second you get it, no matter how contested? What does that role look like? Because with Franz and Paolo out, like I said, there's really only one lead dominant guy that's getting the ball every single time now, and that's Suggs.
I haven't asked previous guests this, but you're a draft sicko, as well. So, and is there anyone in this 2025 class that kind of reminds you of De Silva?
Ooh, that is a good question. I don't think so yet.
Okay.
I think there could be guys like, I think the closest one I would have, I don't like this a ton. This is just like without thinking too much, so it might put me in trouble here. But
I love it.
I mean, someone like Mackenzie you're gonna have to help me. I'm so bad with. Yes, I think maybe he might be the best candidate because he's such a good shooter.
Do you think his defense is?
But that's where
Okay.
He has super short arms. He would have to improve a lot. Like the reason I say that is because I'm like, well, De Silva, I had some red flags with his defense in college. Okay. Maybe if he goes to the right team, maybe he could improve. But I think that's still a long ways away.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not a great one. But what about you? I'm curious. Wait. What about you? Because I need to. Maybe if you point me in the right direction, I can think of someone better.
I mean, for me, like a guy like Nick Clifford is kind of the first one that comes to mind. Just the way that his passing and kind of off-ball creation has really taken a leap this year. We had way more. I think Nick is probably a little higher on the defensive end than De Silva was, and De Silva was a little higher on the offensive end. But archetypally, that's
like
kind of the guy I lean a little more closely to.
I got one. I found one.
Okay.
Erase Mackenzie Mbapo. I think Chad Baker-Mazara actually kind of fits that.
Ooh.
Chad Baker-Mazara is someone I really did not expect to like this year. Really, like, I just think he's super smart. Like, what I wrote about him at the very first time I saw him was the same thing I wrote about De Silva, which is like, hey, this is a really smart shooter with good size. He can be trusted. I like his defense more personally. Okay. I think that's probably actually the best candidate.
Interesting. Okay. I like that U-turn. I was not expecting.
I saved myself.
I was not expecting Chad Baker-Mazara. Okay, that's fun. Where do you have him?
I have him 49 right now.
49. Okay.
So I say that my board rankings and like I'm bad at boards. I think I'm bad at like
it's December.
Because I can, yeah. Like, I don't expect this to be close to final. This is, I would say, outside of my top 35, nothing's really that organized. But for me, I'm like somebody who I value the scouting report. Let someone else put that into a board. For me, it's very hard in a blank slate. If I had a team, if I was like on a scouting team, I'd make this much higher. Because clearly I had Tristan da Silva 13th or 14th, whatever it was last year. And I'm having Chad Baker-Mazara, the guy who I said is this version. I think this guy
that could get an Exhibit 9. I love him.
Like it's tough. Like, big board ranking to me is just not everything. So I just wanted to clarify that. Doesn't mean
I wasn't trying to get you in trouble.
No, you're not. I just wanted to. That was my own little tangent I came up with.
All right. Pivoting back to the Magic. Kind of just last thing with De Silva. We've covered the likes, the dislikes, concerns, excitement. What are your just expectations for him going forward?
Yeah.
Either both short term and just long term. So like this year and I guess career, if you want to get that deep with it.
Yeah. I mean, I hope for this year, I hope he can actually stay on the floor in the playoffs. That would be big. They really needed someone like him last year, a
Yeah.
shooter, first of all. And then second, someone who could make decisions off the catch. I think that was big. And then long term, I think once KCP, I mean, he's on a 3-year contract. By the end of that contract, Da Silva will be entering his final year of his rookie contract. I really hope we see someone that you could say, we don't even need to make a big signing to replace KCP. They signed for like $30 million a year.
Yeah.
We have Tristan da Silva. That's the hope, is like that he's that good where you don't have to spend big to make up for your other big spending free agent.
Do you think he could play the 2 like that? Or is it just kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, we're the Magic, we're big, athletic, and lengthy, and have versatility across the board?
It is that. They want everyone to be like a 6'9" to 7-footer, right? So like I think he fits that mold, and that's my hope, is that he can slide along the positional rankings depending on how you need.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the rest of the team, at least briefly. So I'm just going to kind of open the floor to you on what you just kind of find the most intriguing, puzzling, concerning, exciting, whatever with this Orlando Magic team, whether it's the Franz and Paolo injuries, the, Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, Goga Batadze. What just kind of stands out to you the most with this team right now?
Yeah, there's 2 things. One, you said his name. I have to touch on him. Anthony Black's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care that the shot isn't falling right now. His frame is so far away in like the best ways where it's like he's clearly working out, but sometimes it takes people longer. If that dude gets really strong, like the Magic could very, very much so have 2 all defensive guards that are good playmakers. Like Anthony Black, I don't think the counting stats do him any justice.
No.
He's fantastic. The other thing, though, for me is the consolidation. They have a lot of guys that I don't think are going to – this is the year I think they finally do it. Cole Anthony has been – I don't want to say frozen out, but he is definitely not a priority right now.
It's trending the wrong direction.
Correct. Wendell Carter, honestly, is kind of the same way, which is weird. I never anticipated to say Goga Batadze would be the guy.
He's been good.
But, dude, he's such a good fit. He just fits. Right.
Yeah.
He's the connective center. And that's, again, everybody has a different role, but as long as you're at that size and you can do something, it's good. So I think those guys, and like Gary Harris is probably a tradable player. Caleb Houston hasn't been too much, so he could be like a lottery ticket in a way, but I don't know his value. So I'm interested to see what happens with those guys, because that's 4 guys that I just named. Let me double check that I can count. Yeah, that's 4 guys. And that's going to get you something. If it's a 4 for 3, that changes your, like, most of those guys aren't actually rotation players right now, but I mean, Cole Anthony kind of is. Wendell's been hurt a lot, but he is. What do you do from there? I'm interested to see. I think this is the year they don't owe any picks out right now. They have all of their picks. So they can do a ton of damage. If they say, hey, this draft is really good, we don't need it this year, we can go for next year instead for a draft pick at the same, but like hopefully in the 20s. Maybe we can get someone a little bit better and have these contracts. That's what I'm most interested to see, because I think they do need a scoring guard that, like, not necessarily like a Cam Thomas type, but someone with that mentality of, hey, I'm going to go get buckets, like, that can also distribute. Someone like Dennis Schroeder potentially could be a really good fit. I'm interested to see what they do, though. I don't know. It doesn't have to be a guard. There's a lot of injuries. They kind of need more ball handlers.
So Anthony Simon's name has obviously been thrown around with them a lot, at least, on social media. Nothing legitimate yet. Would someone like him or like a Zach LaVine, do you think those guys would kind of be interesting? Or maybe a little more kind of defensively focused guy like a Jimmy Butler? I know Orlando hasn't been mentioned with him at all, or is that just is his timeline too far?
Who is the first one you said? Sorry, I've just got over a cold and I've been having a cough. Now it's coughing over you.
Portland point guard.
Simons.
Sorry.
Nah, I'm out on Simons. Even though he's from Orlando, I actually liked him before this year. I don't think he fits the culture. LaVine would be interesting. I think he's really proved that you can act like the team is not doing him favors. I think he's the new poster boy, wrongfully so, by the way, of like empty stats. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be a really good redemption story. The problem is, though, it's just nobody wants that contract.
Yeah.
That's where the issue is. I think people want the player, not the contract. He's severely overpaid. He's making 40+ million. I don't think so. I think Dennis Schroeder's probably the guy, but it's weird because he doesn't fit that, right? Like he's a small guard, but he's a veteran.
With their size and defensive versatility, you can insulate that a little bit. And he's quick, he's pesky, he's, we've seen him on good teams kind of be a total nuisance on defense, even though he might get targeted just based on the size.
Yeah. And that's kind of Orlando needs somebody, I think, who is willing to say, like, you're not like, a tone setter in that regard. I mean, he's making $13 million. That could easily be, I wouldn't do this, but like, I'm not even going to say actually, but like Cole Anthony's contract fits in there. And that might be something they want to do. Cole Anthony might be somebody they say, hey, this is a guy who is not getting enough love on his team, but they also have Cam Thomas. That's a little bit redundant. So who knows? But I think Dennis Schroeder is probably the guy where I'm looking at and going, this could actually be a good fit for the Magic.
Would you be concerned or maybe interested in Da Silva being part of that trade package if he kind of keeps playing to that, or is that just a deal breaker for you?
I would not move him. I would not move him for a couple more years unless he is just awful and you have to sell high. But I just don't see that path happening.
Agreed. And then just circling back to Anthony Black real quick, because Rucker and I talked about him last year for Rookie Roulette, and it was kind of like you said, the numbers were like, but then you watch him, it's like, oh God, he does so much on the court. So what kind of specifically just makes you so excited about his game and kind of long-term upside and fit?
Yeah. I mean, talking about the processes again, when the shot's not falling, I've done these videos, like I haven't posted them or anything just for my own gain. I've done these things where I watch the game. I'll put all the plays I saw that stood out negatively or positively. There's very few players that have as many positive to negative plays in the second year that are not stars already as much as Anthony Black. Like he is a film room king. And I know for a fact the Magic think of that too. Like that is something where they know he is doing everything right. He makes the right pass. He keeps the offense flowing. If the defensive rotation that stops the third pass from now happening, and suddenly there's a turnover right when that play should have been happening. And it's that kind of stuff where I do think eventually that scales up. The third pass from now, all right, that's the second. That's the first pass. You just forced a turnover right away. And a league that has now really emphasized forcing turnovers as a counter to the three-point shooting, just boom. I think that's super valuable. He's also really smart with the ball. He's got a lot of energy. He doesn't take anything like people try bullying him because he's so skinny. He doesn't take it. Like he's tough. And I think eventually it's just going to all come together. Maybe the shot isn't great, but if he's shooting around league average and he can pull up off the dribble, that's the big development for him, is if he can start getting off the dribble looks. And, Jalen Suggs 3 years ago didn't look like, or 2 years ago, I guess, we were saying some of the same stuff. We were like, well, he's not really an off the dribble creator so much. And now he actually is. And I think Anthony Black in that same development program could very well do that. I think we're looking at a guy who could easily be a most improved player winner.
God, I love that. He was someone I struggled with initially at Arkansas. I was like, I don't get it. And then it's like just a switch flipped one day. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, he does everything but shoot. It's like,
same.
Will he shoot? Maybe. Do I care? Not really, because just the feel, the IQ, the versatility on both ends, it's just bonkers. And I love that it's translating this quickly, and we're seeing just the growth from year 1 to year 2 has been really, really fun. All right, putting you on the spot. Where do the Magic finish? Expectations for this year? Can they maybe stay healthy? Can they stop tearing all their right obliques?
The obliques, man. If you have a right oblique, please let the Orlando Magic know. So for reference, the Magic are 3rd in the East. If Paolo is out another 2 to 3 weeks, which is my guess on how long it is, they're probably going to drop. It's going to be tough. I think they're going to be like 6, give or take his spot, is my guess. I mean, right now, just looking at their upcoming schedule, so they just lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. They play the Knicks. They play the Thunder. They play the Heat. They play the Celtics. They play the Heat. They play the Knicks. Then it's a little bit softer. Brooklyn, Detroit, Toronto. That's at the very beginning, and then Utah. And then they play the Knicks again. But, like, it's a tough schedule. So coming out even close to 500 of that would be okay. Yeah. It's a lot of tough teams in there.
Yeah, it'll be tough sledding. Probably up until the All-Star break, unfortunately for them. But hopefully they can get healthy because God, they've been fun especially when they're all healthy, and things are rolling for them. But Rich, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Please plug away. Tell everyone where they can find you, how they can support you.
Yeah, it's the first. You can find my work at No Ceilings with Tyler and everybody else. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Go follow Rich. He does awesome work. Rich, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Rich is the best. Make sure to go follow him. He does really good work, not just for No Ceilings, obviously, but also for Locked On and on Twitter. He has really, really insightful thoughts. Really good scouting eye too, and he watches a ton of stuff. So make sure to go follow him, go support him. But we got to find out who's coming up for next week. So let's pull up the magic wheel. We're gonna just add that to stage. Let's go. I love the sound effects. It gets me every time. Oh, we got a fun one. For the Philadelphia 76ers coming up next week. We'll make sure to get to get another really impressive guest, and have some fun with it because McCain is absolutely hooping this year. So he's been one of the most pleasant surprises of this NBA season so far, and really living up to expectations. And for some, far surpassing them. So if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Again, I'm Tyler Metcalf. You can follow me on Twitter at TMetcalf11, on Blue Sky at Tyler.Metcalf or something like that. And find all my work over at NoCeilingsNBA.com. But until next time, when we talk Jared McCain, see ya.